Welcome back to Feeding the Family with Dr. Kristen. I'm your host, Kristen Saxena. On today's episode, we're talking about how do you heal your body through food. I'm joined by our guest, Peggy Curry of Curry Girls Kitchen, who talks about her journey and her new cookbook, Damn Good, Gluten-Free. All right, well, thanks for coming on the show, Peggy.
Well, thank you, Dr. Kristen, for having me.
Well, I'm so excited. So, Peggy Curry, you are your group, or you call your group the Curry Girls Kitchen. That's something you work on with your daughter, correct?
Yes, that is our blog and has to do with all of our social media platform and how we get out there in the world to help people heal their bodies through food.
I love it. Well, I was so excited to meet you and kind of get more familiar with the work that you do. So you are a mom of 4 grown girls now. And like we mentioned, you work very closely with one of them. But can you tell us a little bit kind of how did this whole Curry Girls Kitchen come to be?
Well, it started in 1999 when I was, helping my community create then a nonprofit around growing great and food. And I was also asked to help people cook and teach people how to cook because my second daughter, from the time she was born till she was 17 years old, she had extreme symptoms and was always very sick, in and out of ear infections, everything. And as a parent, I'm just one of these tenacious moms that don't give up and just keep going. And luckily I had a pediatrician that really helped me kind of do the exploration. And so, I've always been interested in food. And so I started a cooking school way back when. I started a nonprofit. And when Megan graduated from college, she being the sickest and the impetus of, my family's journey, she said, Mom, I want to work with you. So I had originally had a business called Kitchen Blessings, where I would, teach parents how to cook and how to feed their kids. That went along with Growing Great, the nonprofit, where we taught kids in school, still do 25 years later on a national level, how to empower them to choose healthy foods. Megan and I co-created Curry Girls Kitchen, and Curry is our last name. It's not
lucky for you, yeah.
Food, although we love Indian food. So Megan and I created Curry Girls Kitchen to really put it out there, and to really help people, women especially, moms of all ages, how to eat for your health and really understand which foods work best in your body, because that was really our coup de grace. For all the years of raising my kids, we had every symptom imaginable. All 6 of us, my husband with debilitating, migraine headaches, terrible joint pain, me with severe panic disorder and irritable bowel and ulcerative colitis. And then all my kids had varying degrees of a symptom. And so it just works. It's the most fulfilling, I think, work that I could ever do, is to help parents realize, don't ever give up.
Yeah.
Use your intuition and understand your kids, what works best in their body, what works best in your body. And that to me is the premise of what Curry Girls Kitchen is all about.
And I love that, we've talked before and I really loved that whole story. So, I mean, when we talked before, you told me about how, food has always been an important part of your life and really your family growing up. Family meals, of course, we bonded on how much we love that. So I think all along, like you said, you knew that this was something important. You knew it was something you loved in a way that you loved connecting with your family and with other people. But I thought it was really interesting because, there's kind of 2 things, and we'll get to talk about the amazing cookbook that you have out now. I really want to talk about that and share that with people. But kind of how all of these things came to be is sort of an interesting journey within your own family, in the sense that correct me if I'm wrong, but you were always focused on sort of helping people eat healthy and have family meals together. And then at the same time, you guys were experiencing in your own home kind of a lot of health struggles. And so it really took a lot of sort of experimentation, listening to your bodies, figuring out, the way that the foods that you ate affected each one of your health. And like you said, it was kind of interesting because each of you were experiencing sort of unique symptoms or having various, and I think, we all, if you ask around or, people always are like, oh, I get migraines, I have this, I have that. And a lot of us, it's like very difficult to pinpoint why we're having it. And I think a lot of us overlook the way that food and our diet really affect some of these like more nebulous symptoms that some of us get. And so can you tell us a little bit about the journey? Because I think it sounded like that's really what moved you to like, let's find the specific foods in your life that, either are having a negative impact or those that are more healing for you and help you really live your healthiest, best life. Because, as we talked before, I'm not necessarily like a person who promotes a specific diet, or I'm not one to say like, this is, everyone should eliminate this from their diet. Everyone should follow this diet. And I love it because your book offers tools for people, basically saying, find what works for you and your family. And here's some tools then, because that can be very overwhelming. If you're like, oh, great, like, how am I going to do this? Here's some tools to make it doable in real life and actually enjoyable.
Oh my gosh, there's so much there.
I know.
So let's start with that journey. So it really began when my mom got sick. My mom died of breast cancer 30 years ago this year, which we can't believe it. And that's my mom right there. Oh. She's
there in the kitchen.
Right there. She's right there. That's what we call the kitchen altar. That's also in the cookbook as well. But it's that when my mom was first diagnosed, it was like, I'm just that type of person that researches, And so I really had this intuition, Mom, the food, because growing up, she was always distended. We'd always laugh at my mom. She'd eat something. She loved food so much, which permeated into me. I love food so much. And by the way, not everyone does. However,
I'm with you.
But I empathize, because I think it's that upbringing, and that's really what I want to help people, really embrace, is that joy of cooking, because it is really the basis for all of our health. It helps well-being, it helps mental, it helps our whole body. But so my mom passed away, and I created a business, not a business. It was a for-profit, but it was a marinara sauce, organic marinara sauce, and Evie's Garden, named after my mom. It sold nationally. And then what I realized was that after 6 years, I have 4 daughters. I have all these women friends. When you raise funding, it's, for research, it's not going to touch any of us. I needed to really help people right now. And I had been working with a friend of mine who had cancer. She's still alive today from stage 4. And she changed her diet. She did all this work. And she's the one that said to me, Peggy, you need to teach this method of how you can help parents feed their families, and in a way like you have. And it literally is, it's as simple as this themed weeknight dinners that's in the book. That's what makes it different, because it makes it fun. But that's how the journey started. So when I started teaching all the families, it was my families of celiac parents that said, Megan's so sick, you need to get tested. So she was her senior year of college. She wanted to go away to college. And I'm like, Meg, do you ever really want to be this sick and that far away from us? And she said, no. So we all get tested. And my husband was the skeptic of everyone. He's like, no, not gonna, okay, fine, I'll do it here, but I'm going to keep my food in the office. I said, no, we have to all do this together, right? So he did. And literally within weeks of everyone having been tested, we all have the genetics. And for the gluten intolerance, he actually has the sprue. And
he's the one that has celiac.
He has
and he was the most resistant.
Oh yeah, because I don't know about you, but
it's just the irony of the story.
Yeah, and so he came up to me on a soccer field. The day is like such a memory, and he goes, "It's working," and I'm like, "What's working?" He goes, "I don't have pain anymore when I walk, my joint pain." And did you notice I haven't had a headache in 3 weeks? And it's amazing how quickly, when you give your body what it needs, how incredible it can heal, and you can move forward. And so the kids, they notice the same things. I can think better. I don't have the brain fog. I have, everyone was different with I had a Tasmanian devil child, Annie knew that, she had behavior things, gone. One vomited a lot, gone, and then Megan slowly started, her symptoms, started dissipating, and eventually all of our symptoms within the year gone.
And that was just really from removing gluten, or what was all the changes that you made?
That first year, what I did is that we removed not only the gluten, but the dairy, so we could heal the villi in our small intestine. Because as we know, the villi, the top of the villi, is where we assimilate all our dairy too. So when someone would say to me, as a client would say, "Oh no, I'm just dairy intolerant," I'm like, no, this whole thing works together. And so it's really good for you to understand that dairy and gluten are both the signs of a potential autoimmune, digestive disorder, gluten intolerance, you name it. So did that answer your question?
I think so. So, I mean, it sounds like you, like you said, you were always interested in healthy eating and food in general, feeding your family, cooking for your family. But even that, you were noticing, we still have all of these issues. And so then that kind of led you to the testing, which is really something that we're fortunate to have, I think, in this day and age, where it's a little bit easier to at least do some testing to maybe guide you in the right directions and realize what would be good for you.
Yes. And I think the type of testing is super important. Like a lot of times, you'll only get the blood test, and that only identifies celiac. Whereas the intestinal, coming from your bowel, that will go to that next layer of, am I sensitive or am I intolerant? And I really explain that a lot in the book, that no matter what the diagnosis name, the overarching problem of gluten is still affecting your body. So it doesn't mean, I wish the word someday will change, is that if you're sensitive or intolerant, you still are doing damage in your body, and you're not able to assimilate this gluten that's found in wheat, rye, barley, and some oats, and that it's hard for your body to break down. And eventually what's happening is, because this is in your small intestine where we assimilate all our nutrients, you're basically malnourished. And so you get what I call this layering effect. It's like you continue to eat, and then you go to the doctor and say, "Gosh, I just keep having stomach issues. I'm still bloated. I still have this rash." And the doctor goes, "Well, how are you doing with your gluten? And are you still eating it?" "Well, I only eat a little." And that right there is what has to be cut, because that little bit, all you need is a bite of gluten, and it goes back in and it damages these small intestines, as you know. And so I just tell people, I say, you have to look at everything. Gluten hides in not only our food, it hides in condiments, it hides in your skin care and your, all your hair care products. That hydrolyzed wheat protein, it goes in. And so, it can go into your brain. And so there's so much information today how gluten affects us and where it's hiding, that when some people go, "Oh, I tried going gluten-free, it didn't work." I'm like, well, you must be missing some things then that you're either eating or using that are still causing these symptoms and problems for your body.
I think, a lot of people, I think, raise the question. And sometimes, this comes up with a lot of the allergies and things that we see too. So there's a lot of theories of like, why are we seeing so many more food allergies now? Why is everyone, having problems with gluten and dairy when, if you think back, maybe people did, but it does seem like more people are having those issues. And, a lot of it, I think too, to me, as I think about it, I think a lot of it is got to be related to just the way that our food comes to us, like the way that our food,
how it's grown,
how things are grown, how things are processed before they get to us, and as well as I think like our gut microbiome. 100%. Same thing, like a lot of the, we have a very hygienic way of getting our food, which isn't necessary. It sounds clean, and coming out of COVID, everybody wants everything to be super hygienic and germ free. But truth be told, I think we didn't see this a lot when we were eating more dirt, and our fruits and vegetables and all of our food kind of contained a little bit more of those healthy bugs, I guess, that maybe populated our guts in a way that made it potentially more resilient. And I think we're just starting to understand a lot too about that sort of gut, how important our gut is to our total health, our brain health, all of those things. And so I can't help but wonder, and I would just be interested in your thoughts, like how much of this do you think might be related to just the way, like you said, our food is grown, maybe just what wheat is now that it didn't used to be, 200 years ago?
Well, and I think I work with a lot of farmers, and I have for years, because that is my number one source of where we were blessed to live in Southern California, and we have incredible farmers markets. I have one farmer I've known for 30 years, and he taught me so much about the soil. And so the soil, when it is sprayed heavily with chemicals and pesticides, it's killing the soil. And what we know today is that the nutrients, the macronutrients, all these essential, things that we're supposed to have in our body to help the gut microbiome is gone. Because that's one of the reasons when people would say to me, Peggy, why do you constantly profess organic? I said, because the nutrient value is far greater than if you're getting a, conventional industrial grown food product. You're not getting all the nutrients. They have science behind it now to show you. Rodal Institute has done so many, studies on the difference between conventionally grown and organic grown, and the nutrients this is a highly more nutrient dense product than one that is industrial. So again, when it goes back to the food that you eat, the choices that you make, 100% matter for our health and our gut health. Mm-hmm. But going back to, how did this all come to be? I have found it so interesting. I'm an Ashkenazi Jew. Mm-hmm. My parents are Ashkenazi Jews. We know today that if you're grown from that, if you're grown from that region, if you're born from that region, which is so interesting. My husband is also lineage of Czechoslovakia and Albania. His whole family is gluten intolerant, so it's so interesting how those cultures are more prevalent to having this gluten, problem. So you kind of wonder way back when, what was going on in that Europe time that's, as we're developing, and now we bring it here. The other part that I thought was really interesting, why we know more today, the internet. Everything is out there so much bigger. I think this has been a closet problem for so many years. We didn't have the ability to actually know all this information that we have today. And it's so much being shared, where every influencer is telling their stories now about how they, they were wrecked, their digestion was wrecked. They felt this, they felt that, they felt terrible. And food is at the helm of how they've changed their lives. So the more and more information that we're getting now, it's all pointing to this understanding of we are what we eat, what we put in our body, the choices that we're making are going to help this beautiful temple of ours really live to its full potential.
Well, I think what you're saying, certainly about the internet, I always feel like it's sort of a blessing and a curse because you're right. There's so much more information. There's so many people, where we're able to communicate and share our stories in different ways that you're able to find information from someone that you never would have, even 20, 30 years ago, you never would have known stories from people. But at the same time, I also feel like you could also find information to validate just about any viewpoint. If you could find why you need to be vegan, you could find why you need to be on a strictly carnivore diet. Like if you wanted to, you can certainly find people that are promoting all of these different diets. And I think, as just a person out there, perhaps curious about I would like to change my diet, but gosh, I can find so many conflicting views because the downside about the internet is just about anybody can say anything without any sort of validity behind it. And so what I really liked, kind of about your story, I felt like a lot of the impetus was, it's a lot about just experimentation, trusting your intuition, really tuning in and finding out what is it that feels good to you? What is it that works well for you and your family? And I think that, that's the piece to me that is it's going to require some experimentation, but it's also going to require some mindfulness and paying attention.
Oh my gosh. I love that you're talking about this because, you as a doctor, I'm sure you get a lot of moms going, oh my gosh, my kid just went vegan on me and I don't know what to cook. Mm-hmm. Or this person's vegetarian and we're paleo eaters or whatever it is. We are so bio-individual that, it's like there's no one pill. Remember the one a day commercial?
Yeah.
It's one pill. It's going to work for you. No, you gotta know what your body needs, whether it's the essential nutrients, whether it's the food. And that's one of the reasons, in Damn Good Gluten Free, which is the cookbook, I say there's 140 customizable recipes. Every recipe has a variation, no matter if you're gluten-free, dairy-free, vegan, paleo, vegetarian, plant-based, whatever it is, you can have one meal to sit down where your whole family can enjoy it. You're not this, chef making 12 different, meals, driving yourself crazy, because that's the whole point. How do we know? How do we find out exactly which foods work best for you and which foods work best for your kids? Because kids don't know. We have to educate our kids. Talk to me. Are you pooping today? Have you eliminated? Are you drinking enough water? What's happening in your body? That family table, because that goes back to that family table of ours, was the genius, I think, of helping us not only create a strong family foundation, but to start our family communicating at a very young age so that I could get information from my kids that I needed. Oh, the sandwich that you were eating made you feel crappy at school? Oh, okay. And it's like, you don't like this or this doesn't like Annie hated eggs. I'm like, what do you mean? It's the perfect food. Of course you love eggs. No, Mom, it makes me feel terrible. Come to find out she had a severe egg allergy. So it's like, listen to your kids, talk to your kids, ask them questions, because they feel alone. It's like, how can I talk to my parents? Well, start young. Sit at that table every night, have conversations, and you're going to know and learn so much about your kids, and also give yourself the opportunity to help your kids as they grow.
Well, I wanted to make sure and mention, so you have this kind of ingenious entity that you call the KIND method, and you talk about that a lot in your book. Can you tell us a little bit about what that is?
Yes. So the KIND method, I have 4 kids growing up. We had 4 kids in 6 years, all athletic. And so even when they were younger, and I was always I'm a very creative person, so I was always working, and I had to really divide my time up. But I was also a stay-at-home mom where I wanted to cook for my kids, breakfast, lunch, and dinner. People think, oh my God, how do you do this? So what I did is I organized my day, and that's the KIND method. Kitchen improvements, those little improvements to nourish yourself daily, is what I call the KIND method. And coup de grace to it is not only organizing your kitchen, which is all set up in chapter 2, and it's also about your meal planning. And how I set up the book is all around these themed weeknight dinners. Because who wants the same old boring? However, I will say you can have the same old boring, it's not boring, but, oh, my kids only want macaroni and cheese, or my kids only want this, fish sticks or this. What I've done is I've created the recipes, and each chapter is a day of the week. So my little board here, I don't know if it's seen backwards.
I can see it. I love it.
But Monday night was always Italian night. In the book, I have, 10 recipes. So you have 10 weeks to rotate. Tuesday night was Southwest Mexican Taco Tuesday. Wednesday's wild fish. I got my kids eating fish because of it. Veggie night. We made Thursday night vegetarian night, one pot dinners. We celebrated Shabbat every Friday with our kids. And then the weeknights, I made it easy. Now, it wasn't your traditional pizza or burgers. I would make them, and all these recipes are in the book. And this right here got my kids to really get involved in the whole process in your kitchen. My kids sat, there's a counter behind me that you don't see. It's a 28-foot long counter. My kids would sit and do their homework. I would give them snacks after school. It was very food centric. And that's what allowed my kids to grow up loving to cook, loving to eat, even with Megan, Megan's the one that I work with at Curry Girl's Kitchen. Because she was my sickest, because she heard no a lot, oh, I'm really sorry you can't do that. She did develop an eating disorder, and that's part of her story. And, once we found what worked in our bodies, this was after she graduated from college, and we started doing these clean resets, she was able to embrace it again. And now at 33, she teaches it. She's a functional medicine coach. We work together. But it's that kind method, getting back to it, of organizing, being planned, knowing what you're eating for the week. So on Sunday, we would do these family meetings, and I'd ask the kids, I'd say, what do you have a hankering for this week? They'd tell me. So I'd plan it out. I'd write it out in the book. There is a downloadable version of, the kind method right here. So you can write out, and, kids love to know what they're eating for the week. So they know, oh, tonight's this was my night. I got to pick that, and that's how the book is set up. Because when we can be kind and compassionate with ourselves, what it does is it gives us more time as parents.
Totally.
It gives us time to actually be present with our kids, and we're not wondering at 5 o'clock, what the heck am I going to eat? What am I going to feed my kids? And that's the beauty of that kind method. And those themed weeknight dinners.
I really love that. Yeah, I really love that. That's something we've kind of talked about before, because I think at the onset, it might seem to people a little bit overwhelming. Like, oh my gosh, like all this planning I need to do. It sounds like a lot, but I think you're exactly right. And I love how you kind of called it the kind method, is it really is the way to be nice to yourself, is really to do this little bit of planning, because what it saves you in stress and time throughout the week, and really setting you up for success, for actually, feeding yourself and your family the way you want to. It really is being kind to yourself, and it is simple. And we've talked a lot about how as parents, or just as adults in general, there becomes a lot of decision fatigue. And so sometimes the worst question that you can get, or I've often said, sometimes the hardest part about making dinner is deciding what to have for dinner. Like, it's like, I'll cook, I think we've all been there. We're like, what do you guys want? And everybody's like, oh, and you're like, I'll make anything. Just tell me. Because what I don't want to do is think. Like, I'm totally fine to make this meal. What I don't want to do is think, because I'm tired.
At the end of the day.
Exactly. So I love that. And I think, like you said, that little framework, and we've talked about this before, those theme nights sounds so simple, but it's huge, because it already narrows down a lot of that thinking for you. You're like, it's Tuesday. Right. Tacos or whatever. Yeah, and
enchiladas.
It's nice for you as a parent, and I think kids do like that structure, and there's enough leeway in there. You can have a good variety. It can be enchiladas, it can be this kind of taco, it can be whatever.
Taco salad, taco soup, taco pie, tacos.
Exactly. Exactly. So there's enough variety where it doesn't have to be boring, but there's also enough predictability, which it sounds silly, but I think even as particularly as children, there is some sense of security that comes with this sort of like predictability in your home and family life. And although it sounds small, I think it's really, life is just made of these little small experiences. And I think that's one of those things where kids kind of, I mean, not that you have to do this, but anything where it's sort of like, this is our family routines and rituals, whatever those are, that is what kind of builds that sort of sense of family and security and predictability that children crave, I think, at home.
It's so huge, because I just remember me growing up, and which was my grandparent that I loved the most, is the one that gave me the most boundaries and structure, that I knew what to expect. And I think when you're saying that, it's so true. And I think that's one of the things, that you don't even have to be gluten-free to enjoy damn good. You know what I mean?
Right.
You don't have to be. It's like, it's for every parent.
Yes.
It literally is for every parent to be able to understand how to nourish your family, what to do to cultivate this foundation as a parent, because that's all I would ever hear in my cooking classes is, how do you get your kids? Why do your kids love to come home and talk to you? And this relationship, I said, it was built over time. I set this foundation, and that family table, never underestimate the power of dinner time and that family table. And bedtime. We talked about
bedtime
that
for mom, I think.
Well, bedtime for kids, and just rubbing their feet and nursing. It's like, food is love. You know, it's like, that's what's permeating. You're putting your energy into the food that you're preparing for your kids. And I say, that's my secret. When people say, how come your kids love you so much? I'm like, I'm putting my energy, my love into the food that I'm making, breakfast, lunch, and dinner. And I've created these little mini-me's. It's amazing. And we love being together. So, you know, that is a huge secret to the recipe of creating healthy, strong, beautiful family foundations. So
yes. So definitely I want to move to talk specifically about your book, because like you said, it's really cool. So it's called Damn Good Gluten Free. But like you said, like as someone myself who is not specifically gluten free, I felt like it was just a wonderful cookbook, really for anyone. And particularly though, like you said, if either you need to or you're looking to, you know, make some changes, whether it be more plant-based meals, gluten free, you know, vegan, all of these things. Even if you're just saying, kind of like you said, you know, you have one night vegetarian night. I mean, whatever, it kind of works for even if you're trying to do nothing. It's a book full of delicious, wonderful, healthy recipes. Or if you're looking for some more ideas for something more specific, it also offers that, which is what I thought was really cool. Not to mention that it's a good read, because it's not your typical cookbook. It is full of, I mean, it's basically a story in and of itself, but it also full of just sort of these real life tips for, like you said, you know, this kind method, how to set up your kitchen, how to make the meals happen, which again is really valuable for anyone at any stage and sort of with any sort of dietary preferences, needs, or curiosities. And so it's, in addition to that, it is beautiful. Like it would make a good just like coffee table book, because the pictures inside are beautiful. So just really like a solid cookbook, I think, for anyone at any stage. But tell us a little bit about how this came to be, your favorite parts of it, why everyone needs this book.
Well, I love it. Well, first of all, it has tons of tips that create simple, nourishing meals that everyone could like, because that's one of the biggest things. Parents will, you know, our clients will come to us and go, I've got this one that likes this, this, and this. How do you actually just make one simple meal? Well, there's a recipe. And that's what I love about the book, is that what it does is that it helps you not only with the organization of it, it helps you set it up. It's 30 years of when I used to go into someone's home and actually clean out their kitchen, look and learn about your ingredients that you're actually making. It's helping you organize. I was a school teacher, so that whole schedule that I made, those themes, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, is from my classroom. All I did was take what I knew from my classroom and put it in this book. It took me 12 years to write because, as you know, with 4 kids, life is busy. And it was published, last year, this time exactly. And it just was a labor of love. I want parents to understand the importance that food is in our life. Mm-hmm. And like I said before, food has always been love. It's been the cultivator, the impetus to create this loving family that we have. And it's got 140 customizable recipes that, like we said, no matter what dietary preference or condition, or you don't even have to be gluten-free to appreciate this book and what it has to offer. There's so much good juiciness to it, and that's really the impetus of, I wanted this to be a roadmap. If you were recently diagnosed, if you're having digestive problems, I wanted this to be the roadmap that I never had. Mm-hmm. And so it's set up very differently. I self-published it. I was able to design it in a way that was easy to digest and easier to implement into your kitchen.
Is that like a pun? Easy to digest. Both the recipes and the book, easy to digest. I love it. Well, I highly would, I think especially at this time of year, anybody that's looking for a good gift for somebody maybe who is gluten-free, or again, just somebody that loves a cookbook, somebody who's a mom, anyone that has a coffee table, truly. So what's the best way for people to get their hands on this book?
Okay, so you can buy this through Amazon. It is available also hardback and Kindle. I highly recommend that you go to your local bookstores because we all want to save those bookstores.
Right.
So on our website, so currygirlskitchen.com is how you can find what Megan and I do and teach. There's a whole thing that actually shares about the book. There's links to get the book from our website. And on our, all of our social media platforms, we have, Instagram and Facebook and Pinterest and YouTube and TikTok. And we also have a podcast that we have called Make Life Delicious Every Day. So, there's all kinds of ways you can find the book, get the book, and learn about the book and what we do to help you live your best, most juiciest life.
I love it. Thank you so much, Peggy. This has been great. Definitely check out Curry Girl's Kitchen online and on other social platforms. Definitely check out this book. It's a winner. And thanks again so much for joining us, Peggy. It's been a pleasure.
Oh, thank you so much, Kristen.
Thanks for joining us for another episode of Feeding the Family. As always, if you're enjoying those episodes, go ahead and hit that subscribe button so you never miss one, and we'll see you here next week.